Welcome or welcome back, I'm the Ink Archivist, here today with a special video covering the first three of Kuretake's Meiji no Iro line of inks. Kuretake was founded 120 years ago, and in celebration of this momentous anniversary, they've put out a line of ink that is composed of colors inspired by colors that were popular during the Meiji era of Japan. Now, I discovered these a few weeks ago in a local art supply shop on a tiny shelf that had a dozen inks on it, 6 of which were these ones, and I was kind of shocked. I hadn't seen these around anywhere, and I couldn't remember that Kuretake was the one who did the Gansai Tambi watercolor sets or the brushes, so I felt pretty blindsided. But the man at the shop assured me they were safe for fountain pens, so I picked them up and did research later. Now, some shops have started selling them since then, so they're a little bit more common now. The first of the three that I picked up is Araishu, which is a washed vermilion color. Now, they come with a pamphlet describing a little bit more about the historical importance of the colors, but there wasn't a ton of detail on this one. The next is Ebicha, which is a strange purplish maroon brown color, which used to be used for women's pants to avoid using the aristocratic purple. And lastly, we have Kujakuryoku, which means peacock blue or green. It's a teal color. According to Kuretake, it was introduced from the West, and Japan has loved peacock since ancient times. One thing I particularly like about these bottles of ink is the bottle themselves. They have heavy glass bottoms, and they are 20 ml smaller bottles of ink, but they have a generous mouth to them so that you can put just about any writing instrument in. I think that heavy glass bottom and the vibrant label on it, each of which are unique to the particular inks as well as their packaging, adds a really nice aesthetic touch to this ink. They are expensive though, given the ink capacity, I will say. Now, I don't mind as much because I already have more ink than I know what to do with. Next, we'll be swabbing out all three of these inks onto Tomoe River paper. If you would like to see a more in-depth review of any of these inks, please let me know and I will be happy to do so. Each of these is quite pigmented, so even on the lighter Araishu, you're not getting a whole lot of shading. And because of that, they pack a punch on the page, which is very lovely. The peacock blue color, this teal in the middle here, is perhaps the most standout of these three inks. It's such a perfect, beautiful teal. Ebicha is definitely the most unique and the one that I had the most curiosity about, because the outside packaging does seem like it's a bit more purple, but when I laid it down on a page, you're not really getting a whole lot of purple. It's quite brown with just a little bit more complexity to it. And it had the slightest amount of copper sheen when it dried fully. Now we'll move on to writing samples of all of these, so we'll be doing a swab and then I'll be pulling out my Hokuro with a fine nib and the Fonte I have, which has a broader nib. So that can give you an impression of what it will look like with a wider and more narrow nib. For Araishu, I will say, I had put it in a sailor pen and I wish I had filmed the result because after a few days, it did crust up on the nib. So if you've had like something like Diamine Pumpkin, you'll probably be familiar with what I'm talking about. And after it crusted up, I had to rinse the nib under some water and then dry it off for it to write again. So if you're looking for an ink that's going to be consistent, this might not be the pickup for you. So if that bothers you, we'll have some alternatives in the comparison section. So second, we will be bringing out the teal color. Again, this is a very vibrant and beautiful teal. I will say the general properties of these inks are that they are saturated, medium wetness, a decent flow, and there is some bleed through and show through, but no feathering on the page that I've seen. As you might expect, Ebicha had the biggest problem with bleed through and show through, followed by Kujakuryoku, and Araishu had the least in this regard. Now, just to clarify something I said a little bit earlier, the ryoku in this name comes from the onyomi or Chinese reading for the Japanese for green. I just said peacock blue because it obviously looks a lot more blue to me. I don't know if they have a specific term for teal, so that's probably the discrepancy. So now we'll pull Ebicha out, which is that unique color. Again, Kuretake says that this was used as a replacement for purple and used for women's pants. So kind of a neutrally color. So because it didn't seem very purple to me at all, I did some digging around the term to see if I could find any further information. And I found in Japanese dictionaries it was described as a maroon brown, which kind of fits the ink a bit more. And I found an interesting Wikipedia page about historical Japanese colors. I'll leave it in the description for you to peruse, but it describes it as shrimp brown. So I don't know enough Japanese to really do a full dive on this, but that's just a little bit of what I found. But yeah, all very well performing and beautiful inks. Again, I wish that Araishu didn't have that crusting issue, otherwise it would be an amazing ink. I also like Ebicha for a black replacement, especially if you wanted something a little bit more unique but still needed it very dark and readable. So I have two comparison inks for each of these three, so I thought I would do something a little bit different. You'll have to tell me if you like it. So I have some circles here, and on the left one I'll be putting the ink from the Kuretake line. I didn't have a ton of space to put all of the information for each ink, so I'll be using their name and then I'll just be telling you which brand that they are from. So first I have Araishu, and then I'll be filling in Noodler's Dragon's Napalm. I believe that they rebranded this to Dragon's Fire, so I apologize, I forgot to put that name instead. I've had 2 bottles of it under the former name, so it didn't even cross my mind. And then the last one for this row is Fuyu-Gaki, the Iroshizuku ink. And these are all quite close. Dragon's Napalm is a little bit more pink, Fuyu-Gaki a little bit more on the orange side, and Araishu is more red. So for Kujakuryoku, I have Diamine Steel Blue in the middle, and then I have Ferris Wheel Press's Edwards Gardens. Steel Blue ended up being a lot lighter than Kujakuryoku, so that kind of surprised me. I always think of Steel Blue as being like a very dark color, and it's always much lighter than I remember. And then Edwards Gardens is very close. You have gold shimmer and sheen in it as well, if that appeals to you, but it is more on the blue side, and Kujakuryoku is definitely straddling the line between blue and green a lot more than Edwards Gardens, which is definitely leaning blue. I feel like this comparison page is almost like a greatest hits as well. I feel like I could recommend anything that I end up putting on here to someone. It's honestly like a collection of some of my favorite inks. I will also be putting the full names of these inks in the description, so if you want the brand and everything, you won't have to go looking for it. So for Ebicha, I have 2 classic Diamine inks, Damson and Oxblood. These are great, super dark inks as well, with Damson going towards the purple and Oxblood going towards the red. And I wanted to use these 2 against Ebicha because I think they really show which way it's leaning. So first we have Damson, and as you can see, Ebicha does not look like Damson. Basically at all. So with Oxblood on the page, you can see that that's a lot more similar to Ebicha, but it does have a little bit more purple than Oxblood. And there we have our 9 inks. So here they all are, still with the kind of penciled circle. And then I went ahead and erased the circles. I didn't know what I liked better. Still kind of experimenting with a lot of things, so it always helps me if you let me know what you like. So I think that's everything for these 3 inks. I hope this was helpful and informative for you. I really like this collection and I intend to get the other 3, but these were the ones I was most interested in, so I'm not really prioritizing it, but it will be coming down the pipe eventually. So thank you for joining me today. I hope you have a great one. Bye!